I have 20 minutes before I have to leave my home to meet some friends to go to the farmer's market and have some delicious lunch. Will I be able to film the last part of my September wrap-up in that time? Doubtful, but that's not going to stop me from trying. Hello everybody, I'm Roxy, this is Chaotic Bibliophile, and let's just get into the books. Everything that I mentioned will be written in the description and or linked down below. And I will also, of course, link the past 2 wrap-ups so you can check those out, and I'm sure I did better introductions for those. Let's start with Bad Behavior by Mary Gaitskill, or Gaitskill. You'd think I would have Googled this by now, but I have not. I'm sorry, Mary. This is a collection of short stories about people living specifically, I think, in New York, people behaving badly. They are very well written. I really enjoyed them. And a lot of them have to do with writers, sex workers, editors, and sort of these interplays of power relationships. Not only sexual, but there's a lot of sex in here, but also just emotional, and friendships as well are very tense. So basically horrible but normal human people behaving in horrible but also kind of normal ways. Would recommend. What I will say though is that 2 months after the fact, I don't recall many of the stories, but now talking about it, I have been remembering some of them in more detail. So I do think it's fairly memorable. It won't make my tops of the year, but it's still good, and I would like to read more about Mary Gaitskill. Then something actually not that different, though it might seem like the case. This is The Man Without Talent by Yoshiharu Tsuge, and this is translated by Ryan Holmberg, who also penned an essay for it, and I read the essay as well. It was really good. Basically, Yoshiharu Tsuge was one of the OG graphic novelists, so this is sold as a graphic novel and not manga, and he was also very influential in the I-novel genre. It took a long time to get him published in English, and this is published by the New York Review Comics, which I didn't know was a thing, but it is, and I'm very interested to see what else they published. This was super good. It's very autobiographical. It's about this man who is a comic artist. He was very successful, but then he decided to run away from that and do other stuff, and he became enamored with selling cameras, but he didn't really know the business, and then he starts selling rugs, and he gets into this business that isn't profitable at all. He doesn't think too much in advance. He has these ideas of grandeur that never realize or materialize, and it's very sad, but at the same time it's just very darkly comic. I think it is a bit depressing, to be honest, but it's also fascinating in the way it's done. I really like the style, and if you read the essay at the end, you'll find out Yoshiharu Tsuge is definitely a cult classic by this point. And I think if you're interested in Japanese manga and Japanese manga history or Japanese literary history, because this is definitely on the literary side, you should definitely check this out, especially if you like I-novels, because it's a prime example of that in graphic form. What I will say though is that it is a bit pricey. I paid it, and I'm glad I did, and I think they have also translated another of his books now. This is his most autobiographical. There are definitely some fantastical elements in here. You know how it works in Japanese literature, that sort of infusion of folklore, I would say, but it's mostly realistic, and it's very, very good, albeit very, very depressing. Still super recommended if you're in the mood. Then I have Mud on Stars by Sarah Wheeler. I finally got this book. I've put this in several TBRs. I've been meaning to read it since I bought it in Ireland like 2 years ago. I enjoyed this, but it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. This is subtitled Travels in Russia with Pushkin and Other Geniuses of the Golden Age. I thought this was going to be more like literary biography in the vein of, I don't know, Sharp, maybe even something more like The Possessed, where sure, it is a memoir, but it's also heavily literary criticism. This is definitely more memoir. It's about her traveling and also visiting these places where these authors lived. So I guess the biography aspect is there, but the literary criticism aspect that I was expecting, because this was at a literary criticism section when I bought it. However, to be fair, the cover here does say travel writing. So yeah, this was good. If you're into Russian literature, I really recommend it. It's a good, friendly way of getting to travel to Russia vicariously, and she also talks about her experiences traveling as a woman. She writes very really well. I like the prose just fine, but again, not one of my tops of the year. One that is one of my tops of the year, although I don't know for sure because that list is going to be super hard to craft. This is The Secret to Superhuman Strength by Alison Bechdel, her new book. It is so good. This is a memoir where Alison Bechdel explores different fitness crazes because ever since she was young, she has been obsessed with this idea of superhuman strength, cultivating the body and the mind as a way of gaining not only physical but also like mental strength. She uses this clever way of relating different things. I mean, I think she has won a MacArthur Genius Grant. Well, she's a genius. The way she draws and creates the panels, it's excellent. So the storytelling there is on point, but also how she relates philosophy, history of literature, actual things that happened to her, but also the process of crafting this book manages to reflect both on facts as well as ideas through a graphic form. It's just amazing. This is hardcover, which is not my favorite thing, especially not for graphic stuff, but I'll take it because I'm so glad I read this right away. Even if you're not the biggest fan of Fun Home is much more depressing also because it deals with someone else and the relationship between her and her dad, and then Are You My Mother deals with her and her mother. So if you're not that big a fan of those because they deal with these relationships that are external to her but also like very personal and very charged, maybe still give this a shot because this time is mostly about her and like her own personal development, and it's hilarious. She tries everything, so it's so interesting from that viewpoint. I really recommend it. Please check it out. Okay, moving on. This is going great, which actually makes me question every other video I've ever filmed. If I could have gone this quickly all the time, why have I been rambling for hours and then having to edit that down? Anyways, let's move on to another graphic. It is a novel, I guess, but it's very weird. This is Panther by Brecht Evans, and this is translated from the Dutch, I think. Laura Watkinson and Michele Hutchison. Is Laura Watkinson also like a short story writer? Maybe, yeah. Maybe I'm crazy. Translation was funded by the Flemish Literature Fund. So that is interesting. This is about this girl whose cat, I think, or bunny has just died. It's a cat, yeah. So her cat has just died and she's heartbroken by it. And then this creature, Panther, starts visiting her and it gets super, super dark and twisted. Do not be fooled by like the childlike imagery. It gets dark and sinister, and honestly, if the competition wasn't as harsh as it is, I think this could have made my top. As it is, I am not sure, but I will reread it and just thinking about what happens here. But it's so good. You can read it in so many different ways. The art is amazing. I mean, it won't be for everyone. It is like very psychedelic and stuff, but it's so good. Again, it looks like innocent and childlike. Oh, very playful, but it's actually very sinister and gross, and it's so good. If you're into these sort of eerie stuff, I think you won't be disappointed. Then a book in Spanish that I mentioned in the Books She Carried video, which I will link down below. It's called Piñén, which is a Mapuche word, in case you don't know. Mapuche is one of the largest indigenous populations in Chile. Like all indigenous populations, they have been mistreated historically by not only colonizers, but also the Chilean government. And so in this book, which is a collection of 3 stories, Daniela Catrileo, who's the author, sorry, I forgot to say that, this is sadly not translated into English yet, but there are stuff coming regarding it, so that makes me very excited. Basically, 3 stories. The first one deals with poverty in Santiago and marginalized communities class-wise. The second one talks about that plus gender and microaggressions that turn into macroaggressions, and it's disgusting. It shook me to my core. And then the third one talks specifically about being Mapuche in Chile now in the 21st century. All 3 stories are really well written. They have this connection, I would say, with classic Chilean realist fiction, but with a modern twist that is solely Daniela Catrileo's. She apologizes for nothing. She takes no prisoners. So if you read in Spanish, I urge you to order this and pick this up because it is so good and so honest and rings so true, but also it's not morbid, it's not exploitative at all. And then finally, another new fave, although I don't think I love this as much as Killing and Dying, but still, this is Sleepwalk by Adrian, Tomine, or Tomine. Now, what am I saying? It's also so good. I need to reread it though. But yeah, so basically more graphic short stories. This one is different from Killing and Dying because it has glossy paper and a black and white palette, so it's not, I would say, as cool as Killing and Dying in that sense, but yeah, it has so many great stories. So Drop, oh my god, Long Distance, very interesting. Lunch Break, heartbreaking. This one though, Dylan and Donovan, very interesting, about teenagers. Again, they are these vignettes. Some of them get more resolution than others, but all of them are striking, ring very true, are still so relevant. This is not an old book, but still, I just really recommend it. Here it says one of the greatest graphic novelists of our time, Wired.com, and I would have to agree. In this case, I'm just struck by everything he does, and after Nonfiction November, I am so looking forward to picking up more of his stuff. I have 3 other books by him, which tells you, considering that I discovered him in September, how much I love his work. So you'll hear more about him in the channel. Yeah, super excited. So that was it. I did that in record time. I think also because I've had time to process all of these reads, I managed to be very quick, and also because I did choose the reads about which I had more to say for previous videos, I would say. Although there are a lot of books that I love here, I think my thoughts are well adjusted enough that I know what I wanted to say about them. In any case, if you've read any of these books or you want to read any of these books after hearing me talk about them, please tell me so down below. If not, tell me what you've been reading. We are in the middle or possibly at the end of Nonfiction November. I don't know when this will be up, but you know, Nonfiction November has been happening. So tell me if you've been reading anything for that. And if not, just tell me what you've been reading or watching or loving lately. Remember to check out all my Instagrams. I do many things. Also, remember to check out my new podcast, The Book Crumbles Pod, and all the videos that I've been posting. I try to post every single Wednesday, but that becomes more tenuous every day. Sometimes Thursdays, sometimes Sundays, you know, life. I hope you're having a good one and see you next time. Oh, bookmark there. Okay, anyways,